right. Good afternoon, everyone on the East Coast. Good afternoon also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us. As you guys well know, there's so much that's been going on this weekend, be it film festivals, cons, what have you, that have been taking place this week. This weekend, I guess yesterday and concluding today, we have WonderCon. So I guess you could say either the sister or the brother con, if you will, of San Diego Comic-Con. That happens typically in the spring, right around this time. Obviously, because of everything that's been happening out in the world, with things still trying to get to a state of normalcy with COVID and being able to treat those that have it, and also to immune. I can speak today to be able to provide treatment in that regard. They still provided a vaccination. Thank you. Sorry, like I said, I can speak today, but because they're still trying to implement that out to everyone, they still decided to do a virtual show nonetheless instead of going live. I'm not alone in speaking about this. As you can see, to your right, my left, I have Michael Pia, who freelances with not just with us, but with many other outlets, and we'll be here to help talk about what we have with this live stream and what they're doing virtually. So without further ado, Michael, how are you doing, man? I know it's been a minute.
Well, I want to say good morning, but you're right. It's afternoon, isn't it? So it's
Yes.
like the day just keeps going. But no, hi everyone. And honestly, too, I mean, some of those comments you were making earlier, about all these different changes and how everybody's trying to relate to those changes and deal with those changes. Yeah, some are doing well, and some maybe not as well as they should.
For sure, for sure. So with that being said, I figured we would hit the ground running in terms of the show. I know yesterday I didn't have a chance to take part in as much of it as I would like, but I know you had a chance to see some of the shows. So how have you enjoyed what has been available thus far in the show?
Well, excuse me. I mainly have only seen two. I didn't have that much time. I had some other personal business to take care of, like everybody else. We all have lives, and if we were if we were at WonderCon, that would be it. But because we're not physically there, we're all trying to do something else too at the same time. But I was able to see debris, the debris panel, and I saw most of the kung fu panel, and actually they were a lot of fun, but with one major caveat. It is so, when you're there, it's the energy of the crowd. It's like if it's the difference between going to a live performance and watching something on TV. There's an interaction between the panel or the actors and you, and then of course you can ask, we can ask questions. And you've been in Hall H or any of the big venues, and when you're in that venue, and it's like sport events, it's, they live for the crowds because it energizes them. And I think that's the major problem here, because we don't have that interaction. And sometimes the host, you have some of the hosts are professional and they've done it a lot before, and they make for very excellent panels. And I can honestly say that, for both the panels I saw, debris and kung fu, they were lively as they were as lively as they could possibly be without an audience. But you got to have an audience, and that's why we go to the cons. We go for the interaction and for the energy, and you just don't have it on these. And it's not their fault. It's just the nature of the beast.
For sure. And I guess another thing that's interesting in doing these cons is in doing it in this virtual capacity is seeing if a lot of cons rest on their laurels, so to speak, and really go the extra mile in terms of what they implement to make and just as you say, you can't really repeat or re still provide that live experience. There's just something that can't be replaced with that. But, you know, if you're creative, there are avenues available to you that can make it more interesting than what you're accustomed to and what we know with, you know, Zooms and YouTube and things of that nature. And I'll keep stressing it or going back to it. I don't know if for those of you that saw Farpoint, and I'll share with you, Michael, is with Farpoint, they did do something interesting with, I'm brain farting on the app or the tool that it was called, but it basically functioned. I feel like it's called Community, or it's called, I'll look it up again, but basically what it did, it provided the venue space itself as like a RPG, and you could enter into the cons based on the RPG layout of what the venue space was, because it's a hotel con, much in the way of like Dragon Con. So you could walk around as your avatar. You could communicate with other people who were avatars that were there attending the con, and you could still attend the panels. It's just that you would have to enter that panel. I mean, you obviously, you know, you, if you had the direct information or the link from whoever's moderating the panel, or whoever the guest is, they probably shared it elsewhere. But you could kind of still have that same feel in a sense by being a part of this software that they use, where you could be the avatar. You could go to the panel space, and the panel space would direct you to the Zoom or whatever link or software that they use. So that part of it was really cool. And just like you would have at a con, you know, you could, as I say, you could run into friends or what have you, and you would have people in the lobbies of the, you know, of this space where, you know, you're walking past them, and you're the webcam and the whatever audio fixture you're using becomes available as you're passing by that avatar. So it stops becoming available, but then it becomes available as you guys cross paths, or you're in the vicinity of each other.
Okay, I got a question. There has to be a capacity issue, because that sounds like it's taking a lot of computing power.
So they were, and it's funny you bring that up. They were going initially. There were some kinks that they were going through with that, and I don't think I believe I mentioned that it was a Farpoint. So I don't know if you've ever been to Farpoint.
No, I haven't.
But yeah, so they were providing updates as it was happening, and as people were given like ideas of things to be used, or tips or advice on things that would make it a smoother experience, they were implementing it on the fly. I mean, the initial base software that they were using worked perfectly fine, but you know, my new things that maybe they didn't think about, they implemented as suggestions were being made. As a matter of fact, some of the suggestions that, you know, we made, because we did a live stream, me and a few other team members did a live stream of it, and we did a 2-day stream of it, and on the second day we realized that it was immediately available. So like things like the resurfacing of your avatar, you know, making sure that it doesn't pop up in a random place, that it, you know, lands at the entrance, that you don't land like right in the middle of a conversation of a whole group of other avatars, because you keep, you know, regenerating in the same place, or being able to specify what things you want for your avatar. You know, they have ones that are in wheelchairs, or, you know, are disabled. So things that you feel match, you know, who you are, and what you feel best fits who you are as a person, I felt was very key in terms of like inclusiveness, which you didn't really have that option to start. It basically gave you one to start with, and it decided whenever you reloaded it, it gave you a random one instead of you being able to choose it. So, but as I said, they made the updates accordingly as the suggestions were being made, which were nice. And it was a unique experience from being able to, you know, just simply hopping into, you know, as I said, YouTube or Zoom, and just, you know, watching a panel, which I feel, while I'm appreciative of having having that content available, I feel it's also awesome to be able to, see that an event is going the extra mile in that way. So, yeah.
Well, it sounds exciting. It basically, it sounds more like they basically set up a very large game. It's sort of a gaming. So I would imagine, yeah. I mean, when you look at it, you have those, the multi-gaming kind of, the multi-user game type interface that they have. That makes sense that they would do it this way. I think I almost kind of wish they would do that with the major conventions, and in the sense that they could set it up for people who can't go, the people who try to get tickets and they couldn't go, if they could actually do, if they could get like a quarter price tickets or something and be able to sign in on an avatar, and their avatar could actually almost literally walk around in it. Now, again, that calls for massive, unfortunately, surveillance and computing power at the same time. But that, to me, it sounds like something that it sounds like something that Google, I mean, to me, that's like a challenge we should give to Google to do or something.
Well, my thing is this, like, to be fair, I know we're saying, how much, computing power it would need. To their benefit, this is, Farpoint is not at the scale of Comic-Con or Dragon Con, and considering the resources that are at the disposal of those larger cons, if a smaller con can do it, or a quote unquote smaller con that doesn't have a whole ton of resources is still able to manage that, then I feel that that is an indication that it can be done on a larger scale with another show. So I think it might just be a matter of, as I said, effort versus necessarily having, unless I'm like reading what you're saying wrong, having the resources or the ability to be able to pull it off.
Well, since you mentioned Dragon Con more than once, are you planning to go if they have a live event?
I am still on the fence. I am interested in going. I'll probably be in a different mindset as things continue to develop. Things are still continuing to develop at a good pace. We have good momentum going right now. But at the same time, I'll be curious to see. I'll be interested to see what things they'll implement to still continue that momentum. Is that going to mean that fewer people are going to be able to go to Dragon Con, which that kind of takes away from what Dragon Con is about. I'm so used to there being so many people there. Does that mean that with all the stuff that you have afterwards, with a lot of the parties or the other additional events that they provide to their attendees won't be at the same capacity, then at that point, I don't know if I will go, because if I'm going to go to Dragon Con, I want to be able to get the full Dragon Con experience of, being able to go to panels, being able to, run into, a lot of my friends, being able to hang out with them afterwards, and we may not get it at that same, capacity if you're limiting the number of badges that you're giving out just to enforce, the social distancing thing, which is absolutely necessary. And at the same time, if maybe, there's some elements that you're going to completely scrap because you want to make sure that you are staying within the protocols that are in place. So it raises a lot of questions, but at the same time, I'm based on how they're going to execute it and what it will look like, I feel will greatly determine whether or not I go. So I don't know how you feel on that.
Well, it's my understanding, I don't know this for a fact, but I've heard that what is it? Ticketmaster is as part of the requirement to get tickets or to go to one of their concerts, you have to have been vaccinated. And so I wonder if they're planning to do that too, because by the time WonderCon, by the time DragonCon happens, honestly, at the pace we're going now, everybody who wants to be vaccinated, I honestly believe will be vaccinated by the end of July. I would be really surprised if that's not the case. Now, having said that, we might as well throw in New York Comic Con into this mix as well, too, which is a little bit later. The problem with something like New York Comic Con is it's very international, and you have friends from from other countries who actually that that show up at
We
New York
both
Comic
do.
Con.
We both do.
Yeah, the problem is everybody in the United. I truly believe everybody in the United States who wants to be vaccinated will be vaccinated by the end of July. That is not the rest of the world, and so I think Dragon Con is more local, is more local and more U.S. oriented, whereas New York Comic Con is not. And I believe that Dragon Con will happen with mask wearing and some social distancing, but I believe that that's going to go by the wayside to a certain extent too, because it is it's Atlanta around that time is just so hot. It's just unbelievably hot. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I hope they have it. I've had my 2 vaccinations. Yes, thank you. And I'm hoping everyone else will too. And I think that under those circumstances, it's probably relatively safe to even have something of that magnitude. New York, however, I really want to believe that New York will happen, but because it's international, I think we're talking about 2 different things there. Because remember, in December, we still have Emerald City Comic Con and C2E2, and they're still scheduled.
Yeah.
So those are both considered to be local conventions. And most people are not going to travel in the middle of winter to go to Chicago. I'll probably go because I'm crazy, but most people are not enough sense to go to Chicago in the middle of winter. So the probability is those will still happen. And, in terms of them having to control it very much, I just think that will be a natural function of the fact of at the timing. Because both Seattle and Chicago in December are not places you want to go to visit as a general rule, So I think that the numbers will be controlled by the timing. So I want to believe New York's going to happen, but New York has a whole bunch of issues that are, with variants showing up and all this other things. And then, are you going to open it up to people coming from outside the country? But Dragon Con, I have kind of faith that Dragon Con's going to happen.
Okay. Well, again, it's, as I said, as much as I want to return back to going cons, and gosh, God knows, I miss them. I miss them a lot. And it was a bummer not having them happen over the course of a year. So, I'm itching to get back, but at the same time, I want to make sure that others are being safe. I want to make sure that I'm being safe. So it's really going to be dependent upon, what the circumstances are and what policies the con itself communicates to its potential attendees that are attending of what they're going to do. Will highly, affect that. But with that being said, if it's something that I feel, is that I can work with in terms of what they're going to implement, then I will be there for sure. It'll be weird for it not to experience it completely as how it is, but again, it's a necessary evil if that's how it needs to be in order to make sure that that it's able to work properly and safely. So, all right. So I know we've been talking about this for a bit. Let's hop into our programming. I know that there were some panels that you discussed that you yourself had seen. But I know we had a couple of ones that we were talking about today. So let's get into that. So let me bring over our screen.
Oh, while you're doing that, one of the things we were talking about is Hulu MODOK, right?
Yes.
If you know Marvel Comics, you know who MODOK is. And the fact that they're going with the animated comedy version of it is, I think, is actually kind of interesting. And I'm hoping that this is a hint that some of the Marvel Netflix shows will go to Hulu if they're not going to go to Disney Plus. because those are way more adult than what we're what we're used to seeing on Disney on Disney Plus.
Sure
So
thing.
I'm hoping this is a hint that this is what they're going to do, but I suppose we'll see.
That we will. All right. So hopping into our viz, let's see if we can locate it here on Comic-Con's YouTube.
Yeah.
Here we go.
There's no rhyme or reason how they got that stuff there.
All right, guys. So I'm going to expand this for you guys so you can see it.
Time to change the world.
Are you able to hear that, Mike? Are we able to hear that, guys?
I can hear it's kind of soft though.
Am I
Okay.
good?
I think it's the one on the far right if you want to expand it. That symbol on the far right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We're hereby relieved of
Just
your
want to make
status
sure we
as
can hear it
CPA
first.
Supreme. That
Okay.
is a living person.
I still need to do your personal taxes.
I'm sorry. I thought this coffee was for everyone.
Attack!
Oh, you know what? It's like a Robot Chicken. They're using the kind of that stop action that they have on Robot Chicken.
Yeah, for sure.
For killing. Hi everyone, I'm Patton.
Oh,
Oswalt.
Patton!
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, he's doing the voice of
WonderCon.
MODOK.
We are so happy that you've all decided to join us here on the MODOK panel. If you look around me, I don't know where they are, Brady Bunch style, but we've got
I just didn't expect them to lead
Melissa
it.
Fumero, who of course plays MODOK's daughter, Melissa. And yes, we also have Ben Schwartz, who plays MODOK's daughter, Lou.
His
and
daughter?
then of course, oh God, I'm sorry, MODOK's son. Oh, it's been a long day. I've actually
I
been.
waved
Wow.
anyway. I was like, he nailed it. We'll get
Exactly.
it.
We can. Can't we just? We'll just.
We'll
Yeah.
pick it up later. We'll pick it
Yeah,
up later. Yeah.
Um,
Who do I play, Patton?
We also have Ben Schwartz, who plays MODOK's son, Lou. And of course, Amy Garcia, who plays MODOK's long suffering wife, Jody. And of course, in the even more suffering
Yeah,
category,
she's from
John Daly
Lucifer.
as the voice of the super adaptoid. And of course, my co-creator,
Okay.
and really the starship captain of this whole enterprise. Huh? See what I did?
Ooh.
Writer, genius, Jordan Blum. So thank you guys so
Wow.
much for coming.
Hello, everybody.
Hey everyone, my name is Monica. I am so excited for this MODOK TV series. In fact, he is one of my favorite villains that I play on one of my favorite board games. And I would just like to ask, for how menacing and scary MODOK is, what was the decision to add a little bit of a humorous or like a funny touch to the TV series?
First off, I love the two different color eye shades. That looked so awesome. It's weird. It wasn't really a decision to add comedy, because even when we went back and read the original MODOK from the original comic that he was in, Captain America and the Falcon, there was an element of humor to him in that he's so self-loathing and so full of angst that it's kind of funny. And he's also such a ridiculously created supervillain. He's just this thing that lives in misery. So
I never
we had
thought
a
of
lot
MODOK
fun
as
with
funny
it.
when I read the
If you
comics.
just extend
Never.
out what he already is, it's kind of funny.
But it makes sense to a degree, because
Right,
I know
like
in a
he
lot
is
of
this
let me
character
pause
that
this real quick.
aspires to be a Doctor Doom. This
I know a lot of times in other programming that we've seen, where whether it's animated or elsewhere, they've provided some levity to him. So maybe that's just more of a recently modernized thing, because I know it's always based on who is iterating that character. Where we're seeing slight differences in how the character is being portrayed?
Well, the only funny
A-list.
and the sad thing, the only funny time and the sad time at the same time is when his motorized floating thing stopped working because he's all head. You know, he's got these bestial like arms and legs, right? Which don't work. I mean, they work, but they don't support him or anything.
Right.
And so it's almost amusing when he loses that power and he's just stuck there, you know. But then of course he had that mind power too, so he was kind of like really not a good person.
Right. All right.
Menacing villain, but I think he always falls short of it. And the fact that he's conscious that he's not an A-lister, that he's kind of a B-lister, and it drives him insane. I think the comedy was sort of built into the character already, and it was, well, where does this guy go, you know, when he leaves that Captain America panel? Like, does he go home? What is that like? What's his home life like? And also running an evil organization, you know, there's got to be this bureaucracy there. And like, you know, to make sure that you have, you know, you meet all the needs of your workers and that everyone is happy and that you're not running this organization into the ground and you've got to pay taxes and kind of payroll and all that stuff. There's all that stuff kind of built into who MODOK is and how frustrated he is as a character.
Hi, my question is, what was the genesis of the show and why did you decide to make it stop motion? Also, how did it feel to see your characters in stop motion animation?
We looked at a lot of different animation styles, didn't we? We looked at a couple of 2D ones, but the stop motion, there was just something about, because it's Kirby and you want all the emotions and the facial expressions to be so big, that stop motion just ended up being the way to go.
Absolutely. And Stupid Buddy, who produced the show, they had this incredible new technology where they were able to kind of film the show with this built-in handheld quality that gave this verite style where you were at home with MODOK or at the office with MODOK, and you know, it kind of added to the comedy and it felt so unique. And I feel like I came out of Spider-Verse being like, I want to take a risk, I want to do something different, I want to do something that no one's ever seen before, and Stupid Buddy kind of rose to the occasion. Melissa, why don't we start with you? Like, what was it like holding Melissa?
It's so cool. No, and going to the workshop too, where they had all the little like costumes for Jodie and it was just so surreal. And then the sets and seeing them just like tinily like move things over in the camera, and it was so intricate, and it just blew me away. Like all of it, I still don't totally understand it, if I'm being honest. Like how it actually all works. But I'm just blown away by their creativity, your creativity, and how it all came together. It looks incredible, and I'm so psyched for people to
they're supposed to be having a
John,
sneak
you're
peek
a
at the
robot.
end too.
What was it like having your essence transferred into a robot body?
So cool. And yeah, like you said, like it was so cool to go in and just be in this kind of like moving toy factory thing. Going in to visit Stupid Buddy is just so cool, and all the detail that's going into it, and just kind of learning about the process and how it's different from, you know, Ray Harryhausen and Wallace and Gromit and all that stuff, and how it's kind of like updated was just cool. Like cool to nerd out on all that stuff. And I think, as for the last question, like the comedy, it's funny, I have this original appearance of Super Adaptoid right here.
Look at that nerd cred right there.
Whoa, nerd cred.
Yeah. Well, Jordan has the nerd cred, but because he got it for me. But it's funny.
Oh, that's true nerd cred, because he's actually read it. That's a red copy.
The comedy actually adds to the dimensionality of my character. There are more dimensions to my character in this show than there ever were in the comic book, as far as I can tell. And it's just interesting to explore that, and comedy allows you to kind of explore that actually, and like all the colors of these characters and stuff. But yeah,
it's cool that you bring that up, because the animators again are such amazing actors, and you know, Melissa and Ben and Amy give so many little quirks to their characters. Especially, I love how Amy has Jodie. She'll do this thing where she'll like sigh in defeat and then do that putting the brave face back on and damn it, I'm gonna try to make this work. And they animate that moment of her deciding, well, let's just soldier on. But John, who does this over the top, like emotive performance, but his character, because there's so little detail he's just this silver robot, but the way they articulate his movements really like met his vocal performance. So to see both those, like the subtlety of what Amy and Melissa and Ben do, and then the over the top, like John is the most over the top character with the least amount of detail in him, and the way that they met that challenge I thought was fantastic.
Then Ben, you wrote on Robot Chicken. Was it like super surreal to get your own puppet?
Yes, it was crazy to go back there because I remember when I wrote for that show, I wrote on 5 episodes. It was my first job in LA. We would be in this little room and write, and then I would sneak off to all the little sets to see all the sketches that were being shot. I love that stuff. It was that place reminded me of like, remember when you used to watch those old cartoons and it'd be like bump bump and something goes through a factory.
Yes, yeah.
That like place reminds me of that, where it's like they get the toy, then they put the hat on, then it goes here, then someone spends a week making it go like this. And so like I love that process. I love that process. And when I was a writer for that show, I made sure to always check all those places to see it. So it was crazy. It's awesome. And also the clip that, whatever the next clip is that people are going to see, it's so well done. It's like a whole different level of stuff that it's the action. Whenever I was doing Robot Chicken, the action would always be the toughest because you think about how many frames it takes to move something. And what they pulled off with this show is something I never kind of seen with stop motion before. It's gorgeous.
And yeah, I think the show is more like a movie. There's 30 sets simultaneous, and it's almost like being in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, where you're in Avengers Tower, and then then there's you move to the other set, and then you're in a galaxy far, far away, and these handheld cameras and breakthrough technology, and it's never been done before. It's, Stupid Buddy invented something that has never been seen on television before. So you have these puppets that start becoming characters, and you forget that they're puppets because you get really invested into this family. And what I thought was so cool and geeking out is that it really is like a movie. You have these galactic warfare with aliens and robot guts and these Avengers fighting each other, but then you just have this dysfunctional family that you're rooting for, and you just get wrapped into this whole thing. And I love that they gave Jodie a really nice butt. I just want to say I'm very excited about that.
It's quite sculpted. It is quite sculpted. Yes, literally.
I feel the same about Adaptoid.
I mean, Adaptoid is pretty
pretty sexy.
Pretty fit. Yeah.
Pretty thick.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm really excited to see the new world you've created for MODOK. Can you let us in on some of the new characters we'll get to meet?
Well, who can we reveal, Jordan? Because before we reveal anything, we were so shocked at who they allowed us to use. Like there were toys that we thought, well, let's put it in the script, they'll shoot it. In fact, there were a couple of characters we put in thinking they'll shoot this one down, and then that way we can sneak the other one in, and they were totally okay with our first choices.
Yeah, there was insane A-list characters that have been in movies and cartoons and video games for years that they're like, yeah, no problem. And then the weirdest, like D-list character, like Stiltman or Turner D Century, had some rights thing that we weren't allowed to touch. So it made no sense, but we were happy. We're so happy with the characters that we got to play with. But to me, it was adding to the Marvel universe and being able to create new characters to kind of build this family around MODOK. So I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about, these newer characters that we've created for the show. Melissa, do you want to talk about Melissa?
Sure. Melissa's like the apple of MODOK's eye, I guess. She looks a lot like him, but way more fabulous. And she's the queen bee at her high school and somehow figure skates very well.
That's right.
And
in a hover chair, very impressive.
In a hover chair, very impressive.
So she's got a very ambitious spirit and, really wants to make her parents proud, which in this family means being a supervillain. And so those are her aspirations.
But she's also, as you find out later, she's actually very sensitive inside. She's just been hiding it.
She is like,
yeah.
Yes. she's layered like many teenage girls. It's not all on the surface, you know.
Layered and angry.
Oh boy.
Like most teenage girls.
Yeah, layered and angry. That's actually it. That's the best way to describe any teenager. They're layered and angry. That's exactly who they are.
And Ben, what about Lou? What can you tell us about Lou?
I play a character named Lou, who is kind of like the oddball of the group. He's incredibly optimistic, beyond optimistic, which to me is so much fun to play someone who's like an eternal optimist and trying to find things. And the other thing that was incredibly fun for me to play that was kind of set from the beginning is that he's really into his Judaism and he's really excited about his bar mitzvah. So for me, I've never been able to play a character like that before, so that was all very exciting. But to play the oddball in a group of, you know, floating head family craziness is a very fun, to be the person that doesn't quite fit in is a very fun thing to do.
Yeah, you're the weirdest character amongst a bunch of people who are huge heads.
Yes, I'm the one that people think that I'm the weirdo for some reason.
Yeah. And I think we're the only Marvel show to have like our big finale, like epic finale take place at a bar mitzvah. I'm very proud of that.
That is so I speak Hebrew in this. It is
yes, you do.
Yeah. Amy, what can you tell us about Jody?
So I played Jody, MODOK's wife, who supports his vision to take over the world. But she's also a housewife, and she's also a mom, and she's the voice of reason. But I think when you're married to a supervillain, your morality has to be a bit flexible. I love this family because it's like not only multicultural, but it's also multi-bionic. You have a machine married to a human, and
finally, bionic family.
Yes, there's nothing more, you know, diverse than that. So, so yeah, she's so fun, and you know, she loves MODOK, and that's what I love. I was lucky enough to record with Patton for one of the episodes, and it was so fun. I felt like I was doing a play, and you just fall in love with MODOK. Like you cheer for this supervillain who's being treated like a washed up celebrity, and this mom who is not perfect. What I love about her, she falls from grace. She may or may not give her kids things that are not necessarily good for them, but her intentions are great. And she just, you know, she's just fun.
Very glad that we wrote Jody as not the long-suffering wife that just goes, now, honey. Like she is very early on, like, yeah, no, I got to change this. I'm going to try to. And she, if anything, I think goes on an even messier and more embarrassing journey than MODOK goes on in a lot of ways, which was really fun to write.
Yeah, that's so fun when you see MODOK pulling back Jody. You're like, oh my God, a supervillain is pulling back a mom.
Exactly.
And John, so Super Adaptoid is a pre-existing character, but I would say your take on him is very different than the version we've seen before. Do you want to talk about him at all?
Well, I think it just adds kind of it's kind of like the Adaptoid in the comics, but just add rage and add frustration. That's kind of it. And he turned.
No, about this panel was like we were talking about before. This panel kind of illustrates the be better in front of a live audience. You know, instead of a laugh track, we actually have live people laughing.
Use him as an appliance. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually maybe some short clips in there to illustrate all their points would be great.
He just wants to be loved and accepted and be a part of the family, but the family's not really there yet with him.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
We're not that bionic, right?
Hey, I'm Matthew, and my question's for the cast. What drew you guys to this show and or character, and what made you want to be part of this Marvel series? Thanks. Looking forward to the show.
Matthew kind of treated that like a dating video almost.
I know. Let me tell you what draws me to you.
Yeah, Mr. Cozy.
Wow.
Mr.
I mean,
Cozy.
I think Marvel has this amazing world of B, C, and D level characters that are just as human as their big out front A level characters, and they're rarely explored. And the fact that we were starting from a base of a frustrated supervillain who's just as angry at the other supervillains as he is the heroes, that also to me was very, very unique. He's not going to be part of any supervillain team up because he's so sick of everybody. And then the fact that, but he's in his mind, but I should be powerful enough to also maintain a marriage and family, just shows you the damage and hubris that this guy is operating under. I loved that so much.
Well, for me, I just remember, I'll never forget, it was the audition came in and it didn't have like any information on it. I don't even remember if it said Marvel anything. And they were like, I don't know. It's like this monologue. It was like a really long run. And like maybe a couple other scenes, but it was so
I was going to say, Michael, the thing that I find really is these parts of it I found really fascinating in terms of getting an idea of what you always hear different stories about how secretive and how like clandestine the process is, and whether it's the auditioning process, the screen testing process, or even the process itself of getting the script. I always find interesting whenever it comes to those Marvel stories. It's ironic because we don't really hear it that much, I feel, in the DCEU. As much as we have various projects, you don't really hear a whole bunch about how secretive it is. But it's always interesting to see how intense it is with a lot of these projects, and how intense that process is. Like, I couldn't even imagine I can't remember what actor mentioned it, but I guess they were talking about in some instances they had, I guess, a couple of people, they had like a suitcase, or they had some type of device that had the script in it. They had to have the person walk them to a room that was like soundproofed for them to look over the script or look over, certain story points. And then they had to give it back, and like it was like super intense. So all of this, always hearing these stories are really fascinating. I don't know what your thoughts on it are.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, because you've actually been behind the scenes before personally, when, and worked on something, on a, I think, movie or TV show, right? Maybe both. So, but I think in terms of the secrecy there, they kind of need it because, I mean, you have fans who are detectives in real life who are going after some of these things. And I've actually talked to a friend of mine, who looked at some of the Expand stuff. I mean, honestly, wow. I mean, some of the detective work these people are doing is nothing less than, it's like corporate espionage. And so I can honestly see why they're doing that, because, for the fans, it's the best thing to do. For those of us who really just want to see the film when it comes out, there are those of us who don't even want to see the previews, or the trailers, because the trailers nowadays you literally see some of the final scenes in the trailers, which should never, ever, ever, ever happen.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. I get the reason why they do it. I'm just saying, just in general, it's just fascinating to know how intensive it is. They could probably give a lot of, high profile organizations that are, really big in the secrecy, or in terms of making sure that files are what is it, the term that I'm looking for, I'm brain farting on the term, but they can give a lot of these organizations, these clandestine organizations and of that ilk, probably a run for their money. Classified, that's what I was looking for, classified documents. It could probably give them a run for their money in terms of how intensive their process is in holding a lot of the secrets of their projects under wraps, for sure. All right.
And so it's in terms of, I think there are only a few people, and I think we know one of them, and BD Davis, he's one of the few people that actually gets access to that stuff. But I think he signed away his firstborn, that they get to take his firstborn.
Right.
Oh my gosh. But It's unfortunate they have to do that in the old days, but it almost reminiscent of the old studio days. When I say old studio days, I'm talking about the 40s and 50s.
Oh no, I got you.
They
Yeah.
literally controlled everything. So we actually have more information now, but at the same time we have less information now too. So it's one of those weird things. I don't understand it, but that's how it is.
But I would say it's also interesting too because just as you said, in terms of how in terms of our modern day and age, I remember a time where it took a while for information to get from one place to another. I know I'm probably going to age myself, and you'll laugh at this because it's not going to probably seem like that big of a deal. But for some youngsters out there, where I remember when I had to actually dial digits on a phone to be able to call people. I remember roller
Rotary.
rotary phones where I had to like spin each of the digits to get to every single digit on the phone for the person's number. I remember where I had a book. I even had it growing up. We had it in our kitchen where I had a list of everyone's number. Sometimes because I called them so often, I had it memorized. Like it forced me to memorize certain numbers, and now I don't really need to do that. We have these huge databases, these little mini computers with our smartphones, where I hate to say it makes us a little lazy and incapable of doing certain things that we otherwise could do. And I remember the beginning of the internet, when the internet first started and we had to do dial up and all that stuff. So it's really interesting to see how quickly information gets from one place to another, especially in the world of like movie news, where it took a while. It was a lot easier to keep, secrets of films and spoilers for films under wraps. But now, all you need is a phone. You're on set somewhere or you're near the set, you take a picture of something and boom, it's already, gone through half of the social media channels that we have, or platforms that we have: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Like it's so immediate. Boom, it's right there and you immediately have it available to you. So it's very fascinating, how much even within the last 10 or so years, how quickly and so accessible you're able to get information from point A to point B, especially when it comes to, movies, television, what have you, any type of content, and being able to get it out to the masses. So.
Well, I think something like MODOK, all right, going back to MODOK, one of the great things about it is we never, in the 60s, we would have never had a show like MODOK. It's just because, first of all, you're not glorifying a villain, you're making fun of him. You're saying, hey, what if a villain had to deal with just ordinary life? It's like, now we're seeing the superheroes having to deal with ordinary life, right? The Invincibles, The Boys, right? Those shows are dealing with if these superheroes were closer, were human, behaved like human beings, which they probably would, and they wouldn't, and so we're seeing that now. And MODOK, it just looks, with Patton Oswalt, it's going to be hilarious. You have some incredible talent there. They were talking about it, but you got some incredible talent there. And I just think it's going to be one of those things where we're going to be watching this and laughing out loud as we're watching this, because it's going to be absolutely silly. It looks like wonderfully silly and wonderfully funny.
All right, let me finish it up.
And it was just so much fun to do and to read. And usually voiceover auditions, like, they're weird and you record them in your car and you have like no information and you're just like, I don't know, and you just like send it off. But this one, I was like, oh, I really, really like this one. And then a little more information started coming in, and then it was like Marvel, and I was like, ooh, because I'm a huge Marvel fan. And so, but still there were like no details. And then once I got it and saw what it was about, I just thought it was so, like Patton was saying, like, just to take a character that we don't know, unless you're like a super comic book nerd, we know very little about, and to get to like explore him in this whole new way was so awesome. And then to also just like originate a character is just so
very
awesome.
fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Marvel for me has always had a great sense of humor. It's a very witty, biting, superheroes that are not perfect. They're not gods, they're not untouchable. And there's something so appealing about, Spider-Man, Peter Parker being clumsy and just the anti like Guardians of the Galaxy, like they're the misfits, the motley crew of underdogs, and that's always I think appealed to me personally with Marvel. And then reading this to piggyback what Melissa was saying, you read these characters, and it really just seemed like a live action show to me. Like I felt like these characters really wanted something, and it was so funny and so smart, but also so messed up. Like things should not go together. There shouldn't be like slugs and time warps and galactic warfare and guts spewing everywhere, and then like a love story in the same show. And I felt like to me that, and then I'm a huge fan of everyone on this. I'm trying to remain not geeking out, but like Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I've watched Patton's filibuster. I have not told him this. I'm disclosing this on the set. Parks and Rec filibuster multiple times, and like John. So I was just like, okay. It's like seeing a band, liking the band, and then them asking, "You want to be part of the band?" And you're like, "So I want to be part of the band." Yeah. And I've always wanted to be a spy, and working for Marvel is kind of like being a spy. So there's that.
True.
Secrecy.
Yes. Amy speaks very truthfully on that one. Yes. There's a lot of when you pick up your new scripts, they just leave a chalk mark on a bench, and that's when you know to go and
It's
you go
very
to your,
cool.
Yeah, you go see your drop agent and get it.
For me, it was I got lucky. I kind of got started at the beginning where it was a pitch where I got an email from Matthew Sandreich and from Jordan being like, "Hey, we're putting together this thing. We're hoping to sell it somewhere," and you hadn't figured out if it was going to be stop motion or what it was going to be at. So they said, "Would you get in a room with Patton and play his kid?" And I said, "Great, what is it?" And Jordan's like, "Okay, it's going to be like comedic, and it's going to be in this universe, the Marvel universe." I go, "Which character?" He goes, "MODOK." I'm like, "Yeah, of course, yeah." Because in my head, it's like that character to me is so goofy looking. The idea that he is a super villain is bananas. He's floating. He's an enormous head. So I was like, "Let's do this." And he's like, "You're going to play his son." So we did a test scene together. That was probably like a 5-minute test scene where we did a bunch of the script a bunch of times, and then Patton and I improvised quite a bit, and they animated that. And then months later, or maybe a year later, Jordan's like, "We sold it." I was like, "Amazing!" And then we started recording. Then they started casting, and they started recording. But it was at the very beginning, and it was very. Patton and I have actually done a different pilot that Jordan had created, an animated show years ago.
Right.
And, we were in that together, and so Jordan has been very kind to me and wanted to put me in something else. And I love Patton, and as someone who's obsessed with voiceover, Patton in Ratatouille is like insanely beautiful. His performance in Ratatouille was gorgeous. So to be in a room with another voiceover artist like that you get to play with, that you already look up to, was very, very fun. But yeah, I got to be there right at the beginning when you guys weren't sure what it was going to be, and I was just this little kid. So it was super fun, and then to see it grow and to see how, because Jordan and Patton are so funny, and them controlling that room in a way that the scripts are hilarious. Melissa and Amy are absolutely correct. The scripts are hilarious. So to get to play that, and also I'm a fan of every single person. I've seen John Daly perform improv for almost 20 years. I've watched John Daly perform. So I'm an enormous fan of his from the beginning. I've watched Amy and stuff, I've watched Melissa and stuff, and I watched Patton. So it was a very easy thing to want to do and say yes to at the beginning.
And also, I've known John for a million years, and I just love the fact very early on, Lou was the first character that we really formed. The idea of a totally geeky teenager who is lethally comfortable with how geeky he is, and that's what is driving his father crazy. It's that his son isn't experiencing any angst. Like, shouldn't you have? Because MODOK is all shame. That's all he feels is shame and judgment, and his son has none of it, and it drives him crazy. And I loved that.
John Daly turned us down like 500 times, and it wasn't until I came to his house and I cried and I cried. I said, "John, you have to be the Adaptoid."
Yeah, they were knocking down my door, and I was just like, okay. No, I'm a huge fan of. my friend Jesse Falcon, who Ben also I think knows.
Oh,
Yes.
Works for Marvel Toy Biz, and he actually introduced me to MODOK as one of his his apartment in New York was filled with toys, and he had some amazing like obscure stuff, and so when I heard that Patton, who I was a huge fan of, was playing it, it was just like, wow, that's a miracle. That could be amazing. And then the writing is so amazing. My character is great. Yeah, it's really fun.
Hi guys, my name is Arlo and I'm a huge fan of MODOK and Marvel in general. I'm looking forward very much to the show. My question is for Mr. Oswald. I was wondering how this show compares to your experience on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and if you're happy to be in
Well, Arlo, the thing about this show that I think is so amazing.
I did not want to say it.
I want you to hear my answer while you're lying. Comfortable place. That was the most soothing voice.
I'm about to say I did not want to say it, but it was like it seemed like he was trying to be like whisper or like it was I don't know, it was like a bedroom voice or something. I don't know.
What did he say? I didn't hear what he said.
Just like with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., this is very much, we want to work within the boundaries of what is in the Marvel universe.
Basically talking about like the confines of working within, the expansive universe.
So there were little nods to
they
S.H.I.E.L.D.
did,
show up at a certain point. There's so many Easter eggs that I can't talk about, but it's that whole idea.
The good thing about it is
what can we bring to it, and then it was also
that they
really,
actually
really
have
exciting.
a universe.
I'd already had that
The bad thing about it is, of course, the secrecy.
See Melissa and Amy and Ben.
But I don't know that you can have it without the secrecy, though. If you look at how he's mapped it out, because of the secrecy, we really want to know, and we're really interested. If it was all out there,
part of Marvel
looking at the
continuity now.
fandom,
This is part of
the problem with the fandom
continuity.
is
If you've read the
they
comics,
get evil sometimes.
Jordan and I wrote a 4-issue comic that officially places Melissa, Jodie, and Lou in the world. I won't say
See,
how.
that's the
but
MODOK
they
I
are
remember, not the MODOK with the family, but the MODOK
the
like
Super
all
Detective
kind
is
of
very
evil
involved,
MODOK.
and maybe in a way he wouldn't want to be. So that's what's even cooler.
Sounds right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the Adaptoid's whole life, is just being roped into things he doesn't want to do.
I was gonna say I would recommend for you to watch Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I don't know if you remember if you had watched that show on Disney XD, but like that show, even though they pay they have reverence for many of the characters, they do provide some levity to them. I mean, and I'm sure it's because of the audience that they're going for, but in the same way that X-Men was still relatively mature in terms of a lot of the themes that it introduces, it doesn't talk down to younger audiences. So like there are mature elements that are in, I feel, are in that series that are underneath the surface. And even in their portrayal of MODOK, even though they treat him with reverence and he is a serious character, they do have those moments of levity that he has, especially in the interactions that he has with some of the heroes or elements where he's being defeated by certain heroes. They sprinkle it with some levity that I can see, some based on what they've shown thus far. And I know they're going to show some stuff later of what you could, what the potential is for this character. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I've seen it done effectively where there is a balance between that serious aspect and also a bit of that levity and that humor.
But that's Marvel. Marvel's always had enough sense to do that. I think that's been the main criticism of DC after they went with the Dark Knight, and it's like everybody thought, oh, we got to go all dark. Well, Batman was always Batman. Batman was a different story than Superman, So you have to go with the characters. I think it's like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's we laugh at them, but there's a lot of serious stuff going on there. But the main part of it is the comedy. But there's a lot of very heavy ideas going on behind that are part of there. And then if you look at Thor Ragnarok, that I think people say it's a comedy, and I said, on what planet is a comedy when your father dies, your sister is a crazy megalomaniac looking to destroy the 9 realms, and she destroys your greatest weapon. you're imprisoned on a planet. I mean, your people are destroyed. Your homeland is destroyed. On what planet is that a comedy? But somehow, all of this great tragedy is hidden behind, a lot of the comedy. But it's not a comedy. It's a huge, huge tragedy. But we
Sure.
don't think of it that way, which I
Absolutely.
find puzzling. I'm just puzzled by that.
No, I get you for sure.
Look, people.
Yeah,
The other thing I wanted to say, just real quick, we're
Yeah.
looking at this, and I'm hoping that Hulu. I know we talked about this before, but the Marvel heroes, the sort of secondary heroes that we saw from in Netflix, I'm hoping, please, guys, those guys have got to come back. Those were so good.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm hoping that Hulu, this is the first instance of something happening.
We shall see. As you understand that there will be something that's going to be shown a little bit towards the closer to the end. So let me all right.
Well, working for Marvel is really fun.
Hi guys, my name is Dakota and my question is for Jordan. Jordan, how do you envision that this show is going to deliver on what we've come to expect and know and love from the Marvel Universe? And in what ways do you think that audiences might be surprised by MODOK's story? I can't wait for the show. Thank you so much, you guys.
Well, I think it does what Marvel does best, which is it tells this big, giant adventure, set against SHIELD helicarriers and Asgard and all these kind of places that we're familiar with. But at the center of it is this very relatable, emotional story about a guy who is losing everything in his life, from his family to his job, and kind of has to figure out who he is in his late 40s and what he really wants. And I think Marvel is so good at grounding these larger than life characters and giving them humanity. And I think people will be shocked. The show is very funny and the show is very insane and crazy, but I think there's like a crazy, a lot of heart to the show, and it is based around MODOK's relationship to his family and his coworkers, and I think people may not expect that they might shed a tear here and there amongst the insanity.
There's a very intricate, very messy time travel episode that ends up being so genuinely poignant, especially with Jodie's character, that I again, and we were going out of our way to make it super goofy and fun, and yet this real, and again, I won't say, but there's some moments where you're going, oh my God, this is like a portrait of a love struggling for real. Where did this come from in the middle of all this? It's kind of amazing.
Hello, WonderCon and the cast of MODOK. My question is for everybody, and it is, in general or as fans, was there a character that you guys wanted to have on the show because you thought it would be cool personally, just because of, how wide the Marvel Universe is, and who would that character be, and who would you have to voice them if you could get them on the show? Thank you.
To me, I wish we could have had Stan Lee make a cameo. He created the character, and this was all made kind of after his death. And to bigger fact, Jack Kirby, who had died in the 90s, but those two guys, created this character in this universe. And for me, I wish I could have found a way to have them be on the show. But anyway, the show is made to honor those two guys.
A character that I think was insanely underserved, Colleen Wing from the Iron Fist series is a genuinely her and Misty Knight. I don't know why they just haven't spun them off into a show. So I would have loved to have had them on, voiced by the actresses, those two actresses who did them on Iron Fist, because they were both amazing, and to just suggest that those characters, just to keep those characters in the mix so that maybe someone will do something with them, because they're really amazing characters.
A female ninja detective agency is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah,
Wow.
and one of them is a disgraced cop who's actually a badass cop with a robot arm. It's just everything about it is cool, and it's sitting there for someone to do something with it.
Because we have MODOK, I like the idea of having more villains, like having villains and seeing what their lives are like. And then just to bring it to the 100th degree, I think to have a normal version of Galactus would be very funny to me. Like the most powerful thing that can grow. So the idea that just is that also head size could be comparable to MODOK if we wish.
Yeah. A Galactus day off, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like when he's not making the universe whatever he wants, him and MODOK talk, or just someone being more powerful than MODOK and getting a talking to, and just having him voiced by someone like Bill Murray or someone you would not see coming. That would be, or Bobcat Goldthwait from Police Academy voice.
Yes.
Something that doesn't make any sense that could only make sense in our show. That's the stuff that I think would be just the more powerful, the more powerful someone is, humanizing them as much as you can, I think is very funny and something the show does really well.
I think it'd be fun if like Venom took Melissa out for a date or something.
Yeah, I was trying to think like what are some villain like mentors, or like what are some other like, or Melissa needs like a nemesis, like another teenage nemesis, like or like the teenage ones, like Kate Bishop or Squirrel Girl or
Gwenpool
like,
and Melissa would
they're
be
like really
team
teenagery about it.
Yeah, especially if her nemesis is a teen hero, but they're both being super petty about it, and that's the my
Jubilee, if you will, Jubilee.
Jubilee!
Yeah.
Oh God.
They could be robots together.
Jubilee would so get on Melissa's nerves. That would
If they're both up for prom queen or something.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Oh my God, Jubilee and okay. Now my brain's rolling. Okay.
Gilbert Gottfried as Venom.
Great.
Yeah, Patton, I have a question. Who's going to be playing Iron Man?
Who? Does he know it's him? He recorded it. Did he know that? John, you're playing Iron Man.
Really?
Yes.
Nice. Like with the helmet and the lasers, the pew 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 pew. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Any other guest stars?
Any other guest stars? Well, who can we say? Which guest stars can we reveal?
I can
Who's
reveal
wearing John Hamm's scarf. Who's John Hamm's scarf from that video?
Gorgeous.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, besides, John Hamm, besides you playing Iron Man, we have some other guest stars. Bill Hader will be doing double duty as the leader and Angar the Screamer.
Oh.
We have
Angar the
Nice.
Screamer, another one of my favorite obscure D-list villains, and he's so hilarious. Oh God, I was so happy to get him for that.
We have Whoopi Goldberg is playing the supervillain Pound Cakes.
That's awesome.
And she's amazing.
That's
This
awesome.
is how secretive Marvel is on the show, and we didn't know.
They didn't tell you.
Whoopi Goldberg's in it. That's amazing.
Sold.
And we have Nathan Fillion is playing Wonder
Oh,
Man. who
didn't he
is an
voice
Avenger,
Wonder Man?
actor and underwear model, and in a relationship with MODOK's ex-wife Jodie. Amy, do you want to talk about that at all?
I feel like Nathan Fillion has
look, a woman's got needs.
a prior connection to Wonder Man. You guys can let me know in the comments. I'll look it up. I feel like either he was supposed to allegedly be cast as Wonder Man in the live action version, or he provided his voice. I mean, maybe the latter, or to say not the latter, the former. But I feel like he had some prior connection.
Supposed to be in Suicide Squad or in Suicide Squad?
No. Wonder Man is Marvel, but like I feel like he was supposed to. I feel like Nathan already had a prior connection to that character, so it was either, and I'll look it up. He either was up for the role of the live action version, if I recall, or maybe it was his voice. But I feel like I'm leaning more towards the live action casting. But anyways, I found it interesting. It's always interesting to see, like, Marvel never forgets people that they reach out to do certain parts, and you hear it all the time with certain actors that they start off auditioning for one role and then they get a different part that is more in line with with what they brought to the audition. Because I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, but like historically, Tom Hiddleston was supposed to be Thor, or he auditioned for Thor, and he eventually ended up getting Loki because he's a way better fit as Loki than he would be for Thor, because he has that mischievous quality about him that he's able to pull off very well that you need for Loki. And then I know also with Sebastian Stan, he had auditioned for Captain America, and because when he was auditioning for it, for those of you that unfamiliar with the story, is that I guess he brought like a really dark quality to the character that the casting folks didn't feel was quite right for Steve Rogers, but felt was more in line with what you needed perhaps for Bucky Barnes based on where they want to go with that character. So it's always interesting to see how, like, as I said, actors start off one place and they end up someplace else in terms of who they eventually get cast as. But
I did. So I had seen where what's his name, Tom Hiddleston had auditioned for Thor, and I saw that that test screening that they did for him. Yeah, that didn't work. It didn't work at all. And Chris Hemsworth is just about as perfect for Thor because Thor is not the brightest bulb in the marquee. Okay, that's just, and he plays that perfectly. And of course, it helps out that he's blonde too. Because it's just they're Marvel did very good casting on that. All right, let's give them credit. They did a very good job on the casting for both characters. So
hey, that's why they make the big bucks. Being able, I will give credit where credit is due. Even sometimes where I feel like a certain casting piece, casting news, doesn't work on paper. When I see it on the screen, I'm like, you know what? I was wrong. In this case, it definitely worked. So let me continue with the story, or stay with the panel.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So Jodie being a very relatable, not superhero character, which I actually loved and appreciated because, and she, her and MODOK are kind of on the rocks, and Wonder Man swoops in, literally flies in.
Yeah.
And he's so pissed and very charming, and she may or may not turn into a bit of a monster herself because he is a celebrity and underwear model and has like a 16-pack. So there's that, and MODOK gets a little petty. I don't want to give a spoiler alert, but he may or may not say to his his wife's new lover that she's just using Wonder Man for his body and for his butt. So there's that, but it's just so fun because she gets to go on this fun journey and date for the first time as an independent woman after being a housewife for so long, and she becomes a book author, and she becomes famous, and when you're married to a supervillain, it creates tension in the family. Even her kids are like, who is mom? She's the worst. Lou loves her. Lou's like, she's the best. But it's really fun, and I'm really excited that my character gets to date an Avenger.
We have a special surprise for everyone. We have a clip we want to show you. It's just a very simple clip about two AIM employees having a disagreement at the office. So go ahead and take a look.
We got some mad scientists, but what's that little thing? Oh my god! Clever ice punch!
What?
My dang shoulder again. My choice is Robobra. Commando T, I call on you. Oh man, unlikely animal friendship.
Seems like they're not gonna.
Yeah.
So, should we?
Yeah.
Give up?
More like Shiva.
No, I'm not done with you yet.
All the religions are wrong.
You seeing this?
She is the key, not him. That clip was insane.
That was amazing.
So good.
Clip is incredible.
Mad
Wow.
scientist stuff. Yeah.
Damn.
Really amazing.
That really was pretty good, wasn't it? It was
WonderCon,
gory
thank
too.
you so much for letting us do this virtually. We wish we could be there in person. We'll see you on the other side of the plague. But guys, everyone, thank you guys so much for doing this. All of you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Well, what do you think?
Sold. I mean, on paper it already looked awesome, but yeah, I am sold. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Oh, yeah, oh no. I mean, when I heard the voice of Patton Oswalt doing MODOK, I mean, there's just no way there's no way it wasn't gonna be funny. I mean, and it's gory. When she stabbed him in the eyes, we're like, what? And then she says, "Oh, you don't get to die." And she sprays him. It's like, what is that all about? I mean, come on, it's already hilarious. And that was just a little preview. You know, and it's like a little secondary thing. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be hilarious. I do.
For sure. So with that being said, I feel like we should probably just like switch gears for a second. But I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break before we get back into it. You guys need to grab anything, and we'll be back in one moment with our next stream of the next panel. All right, be back.